Well, Michelle Jones, welcome to the Christ Quest. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're live in the Christ Quest. And we've been trying to do this for a few weeks, but it wasn't the right timing. So now it's the right timing. And Michelle Jones and I are going to have a conversation. So, Michelle Jones, first, what drew you to the Christ Quest?
What drew me, and thank you, Amos. Thank you very much for having me on your show. I appreciate it. My name is Michelle Jones. I'm a Reiki practitioner. I'm a psychic medium. I believe in quantum as our God quotient, and I am too in the search of Christ. And my beliefs are not what everybody else's beliefs are. And I've been called the disruptor because I like to rock the boat and shake up the norm. And so I also have a very childlike personality, and I believe in just living our fullest in that childlike presence to make ourselves happy. And when we do that, you know, between what we are raised to know as God and what we discover through our brokenness in our years, God to be in our personal journey. And that's the topic I like to talk about, what I know God to be now personally versus what I was told he was growing up.
Isn't it amazing when you start to examine in any area of life what let's say, what I say I believe to be true, that is mental assent. It's like, but what do I actually know to be true? So let's get into what have you experienced? So everything is on the table to talk about. So please bring it. What have you experienced that you know, not here because it has done something in you?
So to start with, when I was a child, my father was an atheist, but he taught me quantum thinking without telling me that's what he was teaching me. And there was a lot of one-liners and, things that were just fun, just to be present in the moment. My dad really believed in living in the moment. And towards the end of my dad's life, when he got sick and whatever, I remember saying several times, "Dad, can I pray with you?" And he would say, "I don't need all that, but if it makes you feel better," or whatever. And my mother kind of had her own relationship with God. And so we celebrated Christmas and the traditional, Christian holidays in our household. And we didn't have a whole lot of family growing up. It was just the four of us, my mom, my dad, my sister, myself. And so a lot of times we lived in communities where there were older neighbors, and they would see my sister and I playing outside, but they knew we weren't a member of a church community. And I think they were concerned for our well-being. And so they started taking us to church, and my sister and I kind of really fell in love with Vacation Bible School. We loved the fellowship of Sunday school and all the projects. We couldn't get enough. We were in church all the time. And it was really about the fellowship of coming together and learning about somebody that loves you and is for your good. And we memorized books of the Bible and different things, and I enjoyed the journey, but it was really more fun than anything. And then out of tradition, I raised my kids in that, again, with my father still saying, there's no such thing as God. This is it. You get this one life and it's all done. And I am a psychic medium. And my father died in 2010. My sister was killed. She was murdered in 2005. And my sister and my father both are spirit guides for me on the other side now. And so many times I've had discussions with my father since his passing about, well, how is it that I'm able to commune with you now if there is no afterlife, and it was you're born, you die, and that's it? And he told me that he was wrong about there being a God, but it isn't like I was taught, like God is somewhere up in heaven floating in the clouds, and someday we're going to go live in his mansion with him. And I think in Vacation Bible School and Sunday school, I kind of got this fantastical magical kingdom idea of God in the afterlife, right? And then when my sister was murdered and our family kind of fell apart, and I went through a divorce, I lost my job, I lost my home, I became a single mom. I mean, I had all kinds of trauma upon trauma, and then it started making me physically sick, like pain. I had over 80 surgeries in my life. That's not an exaggeration. That's a true number. And I started paying attention to other things. Like when I was going in one direction, I would get stopped, like literally stopped. And I didn't have any energy. I couldn't put thoughts together. And people kept telling me I had mental illness and that the issue was me and all of this stuff. And I tried so hard going, well, and I mean, medications and all this stuff to fix me, to make me normal, quote unquote, normal. When the whole time I didn't know what grief was. I had never lost anyone in my life until my sister. She was 33 when she died. She would have been 34 in May. She died in March. And I had just turned 32. So when I lost my sister, that was the first death I'd ever encountered. And she was my best friend, my confidant, my all and everything. And she always built me and whatever. So after her death, I was kind of left out in the world all alone, and my family kind of dismembered, especially after my father died in 2010, because my mom kind of kept my niece and nephew separate from us. And I was always kind of the black sheep of the family anyway. And I live in Kansas, they live in Colorado. So I was literally on my own, getting a divorce, losing my job, losing my home, raising 3 kids, and trying to figure out for myself how to get out of this stuck funk. And the more I concentrated on getting in church and getting involved, just so my kids could have a break, if nothing else, from my inability at times, not even to be able to get out of bed under my own authority, right? I kept them involved in church. I kept them involved in camp and different things. But I was never really in a place where I felt that peace that they say is the absence of all of the other stressors in life, that fills you with a sense of knowing that you're on your path, that you're where God has intended you. I never had that calm until recently. About 8 years ago, and we talked about this once before, about 8 years ago, I got a calling, and God shook me. And when I say God shook me, like literally I was seeing writing on the ceilings. I call it armor. I see it on people's skin. The carpet, the sky, every surface is covered with writing. And it was setting out this plan for me. And it was saying that I was going to make a speech on a global platform that was going to bring the hearts of millions back to God. And I started shaking my fist. Do you know how broken I am? Are you kidding me? Have you seen my life? Most of the time I'm such a mess. I can't figure out how to complete a sentence. And you're calling me to make a speech on a global platform to bring the hearts of millions back to God. And I'm not even sure I believe anymore. And I really had to struggle with this. And I've been struggling still to this day. I still struggle with it. Right. So I have gotten a Reiki certification. I got into natural healing methods. I got off all the medications. I stopped doing all that. And my health is so much better now. And I started getting back to nature. I started getting back to nature. I started doing meditations. I started mindfully figuring out for me what it was going to take for me to be at peace with myself, to be happy with myself. If there's a God that has left me like this, broken and in pieces, and basically I felt took everything that ever meant anything for me out of my life and left me here, then I must have everything I need. So I'm just going to just do myself and go. And through the practice of mindful meditation, through the practice of Reiki, through the practice of crystals and frequency, I totally believe in frequency. And that goes back to the quantum to me. Like, I believe God is pure energy, and energy cannot be killed and it can't be created. It can only be transformed. And so, I think that God is the energy that is our soul that gives this 3-dimensional body in this plane life. And all we're supposed to do with our uniqueness is be happy to our fullest selves, whatever that looks like. And I think that all of the trauma and all of the breaking and all of the letting the light in, right, through that brokenness is what fills us with this new sense of purpose. And when we have nothing left and we only have to focus on ourselves, like what would it take today to make Michelle happy? I don't have anything else. So if I'm responsible for my happiness today, what does that look like? And so I just started doing things that made me happy. And when you start doing things that make you happy and your vibration starts to change, it changes the people that you come into contact with, and you start seeing it reflected back to you. And when you start seeing that reflection, to me, that's that God energy coming back to you, right? Because we can walk around huffy, blaming the world and saying it's their fault and blame placing and all that stuff all day long. And it does nothing to make us feel better. And nobody else wants to take responsibility for our mess because they have their own. And so, you really have to start looking at yourself and what you're responsible for. And so I started making lists. What is Michelle reliably good at? And what is Michelle reliably not good at? What do I enjoy? What do I not enjoy? And especially like after my kids left home, the empty nest syndrome that everybody talks about. I got married and had my first child at 19 and 20. And so I've been a mother since I was 20. And so when my kids moved out, I was still stuck in this funk. And I'm thinking, I don't remember what it was like to have a life where I only had to consider myself before I made a decision about where I lived or what I ate or what I was going to go do with my time or where my money was spent or any of that. And so now I have a new way of looking at myself and a new way of saying what's going to make Michelle happy today. And am I willing to do that for myself? And if I'm not willing, who will? And so I think finding God is really about going inward, learning to love yourself, all the broken parts, all of them, loving the shadows, saying, I didn't know it was going to end up like this. And I don't like everything I've done with my life, but I have a choice. And I now know that I don't like the way I sounded in that, or the way I acted in that, or what I chose over here. And so going forward, I want to eliminate these things that didn't make me feel good on that list of things. That I want to start sticking with the things that I reliably enjoy, that reliably make me who I am. And in doing so, I became filled, and I was getting that reflected back to me. Love and abundance, and people supporting me and building me in a way that says, I love your message. I love what you're doing. And I didn't even know what I even now, I don't know if I have it figured out. I just know every day that it's my job to live to make me happy. And that's not a selfish thing. It's not a selfish thing. It's a healthy setting boundaries and keeping yourself away from toxic situations or things that trigger you. And because we've all been broken in certain ways. My mother is a narcissist. And so the gaslighting and the blame placing and all of that, I was always feeling like I was never good enough and didn't have anything valuable to share, but yet I was motivating people to change their lives, being friends with me. I had a girlfriend who'd never bought a car. I helped her to get her car, and she never thought she could buy a house. She now has a house, a 20 by 40 shop, and an acre and a half of land that she's owned for 3 years. And, I motivate people to find the good in themselves, to have their best life, to know what they can accomplish, because I think a lot of us have just been told we can't, and that goes along with, you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way. And to be Christian, you've got to follow these moral guides and this moral compass. And so we're all trying to do it the way we're told, rather than just saying, you don't know, you can't, you haven't tried. And the only reason that you can't right now is that lack of effort towards trying. So try. If it works, then maybe that's what's meant for you. If it doesn't work, try something new. And that
Yep.
became this childlike energy that I went forward with. I started going on adventures with my dogs. Yesterday, I took my dogs just to play in the rain, just because we could. And I find so much healing in that, because I just, I had a Reiki studio. I have a Reiki studio, and the landlord wasn't quite ready to have that space rented. And so there's issues with the building that's more costly than they're ready to put into this establishment right now. And so I'm losing my space. And so literally all morning I've been working with my girlfriend and a friend of ours and whatever. We've been emptying out the building and bringing all of this stuff back to the house and whatever. And I'm like, I got to get on this call. I'm not going to miss this call today. But here I am. Here I am. And so I believe that God didn't tell me to open a Reiki studio. He stilled me again. And for reasons outside of my own, you know, I didn't lose the studio. The business didn't fail. It wasn't anything like that. It's just God stopped me and said, I told you you were going to make a speech. I didn't say you were going to open a Reiki studio. And it just kind of came to this point where it didn't work anymore. And I'm just open to saying, okay, I tried to force a square peg in a round hole again. Michelle, you're famous for that. So take a breath, realign. What are we doing now? And I have, in the same time frame that the studio started shutting down.
I'm going to jump in because this is a conversation. So I need
I'm
to go
sorry.
back and forth. It's okay. Throw the ball back and forth with me. Okay. So what I want to ask you, Michelle, is how have you let go of the constructs that you thought? Because you're talking about things that are very outside of what's normally. How have you given yourself permission to do that? Did it
It
take the
wasn't
loss
easy.
or yeah, how?
Well, okay, so I live in a small town, and the people in this town are very afraid to try anything new because they're worried about what everybody else thinks, what everybody else says, and I don't care. There will be people who tell you that Michelle is the sweetest, giving, most generous, kind, loving person they've ever met. And then there'll be people that will tell you that I'm the biggest SOB with the worst filthy mouth that you've ever heard. And they're both right? Because we're both light and dark. And, you know, I was raised with this, you know, very stern parent who blamed me for everything. So I do have that ability in me, and I will go there if I need to, right? But I choose joy. And I don't care if other people agree with my path. They don't have to. I'm not asking them to be on my path. I'm not asking them to take the journey. I'm saying I'm willing.
Okay, so let's hit this on the head then. What is Christ to you? What is Christ consciousness? All of that. I'm really curious what your thoughts are on this.
God is pure energy. He is pure energy, and that energy is resonating in everything. And we all have a unique frequency within this energy. And when we tune into that frequency and we calm ourselves and we get ourselves out of the concern of checking boxes for the world and being concerned about what other people think about what we're doing or whatever, and we just do for ourselves, regardless if people laugh or demean us or call us names or think we're crazy, when we just go forth with what we are innately good at and we resonate at that energy, not only are we open to hearing and seeing the synchronicities of what God is putting in front of us, but we're able to know where that path is going, know when we've come to a door that's closed, and see where the next one is opening, because we're open to it. It's not for everyone, and it's a simple concept, but it's not easy. You just have to look for the synchronies and the validations in your effort when you're being true to yourself.
You seem very practical, like everything comes down to esoteric, and then it's like you anchor it into practically where am I putting my feet? Is that correct? Or how?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Where did you learn that?
I learned it by growing up with a mother who blamed me for everything and twisted my narrative and took all my memories. Literally, you know, as an example, one time my sister and I, when we were, I think she was about 8 and I was about 6, we sat down at a table and she said, let's decide how we spell our nicknames. Because my name was Michelle and her name is Melissa. And of course, our parents spelled our names for us when we were born. But she went by Missy and my family always called me Shelly. And we were very different. We were 180 degrees. I was a tomboy and she was very feminine and very, very, dainty. And so she sat down and she wrote out Missee, Missie, Missi, and she's, 15 ways she wrote it out, right? I wrote out Shelly, done, Shelly, there you go. And I was simple. And my sister's like, no, and she chose Missi because my sister loved hearts. And so she put 2 hearts over each one of the I's. And so my sister spelled her name Missi. Well, after my mother moved here a few years ago, we were helping her and she still has a lot of my sister's things. And she used to sell home interiors and she had this badge and it said Missy Vance on it. And I said, Mom, do you want to keep this? And she said, what is it? And I said, well, it's Missy's name badge, but it's spelled wrong. And she looked at it and she said, no, it's not. What do you mean it's spelled wrong? And I said, well, Missy spelled her name with 2 I's. This is spelled with a Y. And she said, oh, no, she didn't. She's like, I don't know where you come up with this stuff. And so literally every one of my memories, every one of my thoughts, I was made to believe was a lie that I created from out of nowhere, right? And I just decided one day I'm done trying to convince you this is my truth. I'm done trying to convince you that my memories are fake or false or made up. And so I'm going to live my truth and you can be over there telling the world whatever you want about me. I no longer care. And I
I
think it
think
was
people will resonate with what you just said.
yes, like I no longer care. You're going to believe what you want and you're going to tell everybody what it is you believe, no matter what my truth is. You're not concerned about my truth because I didn't lose my sister. My mother lost her daughter. Remember, she's a narcissist. And so it's her story, her daughter, and it's going to be the way she wants it remembered, the way she wants it told, and nothing else. And so I think losing my sister and then her being on the other side to guide me, that knowing that she's still with me, that I can just, and I should have, it's in my bedroom, but I have a bracelet. My sister was cremated. And if you have a moment, I'll humor you with my story. This bracelet, they told us when we went in there, I had never been to a funeral. I had no idea about what the traditions are for viewings or whatever. And they told us we could leave anything we wanted with Missy before she went into the crematorium. And I was like, I love this idea. I want something with my sister. And I quickly started like, what have I got? What have I got? Well, I'm always wearing jewelry, right? And I was given this bracelet and it's interconnected hearts with crosses. And my mother-in-law had bought one for me and one for my sister-in-law. So it was already a sister bracelet. And I thought, that's perfect. I'm going to put this on my sister. So I took this bracelet off and I put it on my sister's wrist and I said nothing. And I know that one of my niece's friends put a ring on my sister. So there was other people that put jewelry and other things on her. And then she was put into the crematorium and like 5 years later or something, we were taking their ashes to spread their ashes. And in the bottom of this bag, there was something in the bottom of this bag. And my mom was like, what's in there? What is that? And I saw it and I knew. And I was like, that's my bracelet. I said, I'm taking, because my mom will keep everything if you let her. And so I'm like, I'm taking that back. But from that crematorium, there was nothing, it was just ashes. There was nothing else in there except the tag that was her identifier for her ashes and this bracelet. It is not scorched. It is not melted. It was not destroyed. It is in perfect working order. And that was my sister's way of saying, I'm right here with you. I haven't gone anywhere.
Wow.
And that energy of God
Mm.
that connects us.
I want to ask you about co-creatorship then, because what you just said, your mother gets her right to have her own story. You have your own right to have your own story. And it's like, how do you find that? Is there tension there when you consider, okay, whatever God is and God's story is, and yet you get to have your own story. How do you find those narratives dovetail? Do they dovetail? Are you being led by a story outside or greater than you? Are you being led by your own story? Is it a hybrid? How do you see that?
I see it as a hybrid. And because this is definitely a calling, it's definitely a message that I've heard audibly, that I have seen written on things, that I have had spiritual, I've had dreams about, I've had premonitions about. So I believe that it is a mix of the belief so firmly that my mother's truth was the only truth, and that's what I had to grow up with, regardless if it resonated with me or not, into making that shift. But I have my own truth, and I'm tired of not being able to speak it. To then my dad and sister coming from the other side and telling me, you were made for a purpose, and started showing me that purpose. And so I mixed, what core values I was brought up with from my parents, and the strengths that they gave me, the traditions I was raised with, and the faith that I have in God and my sister to bring me what's best for me. I know that everything that's happening, whether I'm being taught a lesson by being broken or hurt or crushed in some way, or whether I'm being blessed, I know that it's for my greatest good. And I know the pain is only temporary. So I take the knowledge of that and I say, okay, this is hurting. This doesn't feel right. This has caused me some sort of discomfort. I don't like the reflection I'm getting back of the energy in the universe now. So I need to change me. There's something I'm not seeing here. What did I not see? And so then I start re-examining, where does this hurt and what do I need to soothe? What do I need to comfort? What do I need to change? And then I try to fix that and then move forward in the comfort energy, in the loving energy, which is what I feel God is, that always wanting the best for me. And I believe even when it's a breaking, it's for my good.
That would assist you, I would assume, because you're not, in that sense, playing a victim role of this is happening to me, this is happening for me. So,
Yes.
what is your theology like now then? What you've been talking about it, all dancing in and out of it, but what do you believe? What do you believe is going to happen after you pass from this reality?
I think that we are like waves in an ocean. So if you on a very small scale, let's just say God is the ocean, okay? And we are a wave that gets created like one of God's thoughts, all right? We're created by some sort of storm, ship, animal, whatever, out in the ocean. And our job starts right there. Our birth is when this wave is created, and our death is when we hit the shore. And we can go any path that we want. We have free will to be a rolling wave or just one that laps the shore, do whatever. And we have a purpose, whether it's to cool the ocean, to bring something from the ocean to the shore, to take something from the shore back to the ocean, whatever our purpose is, right? We can choose however we want as that wave to get to the shore, but it's a set period of time and we have to hit the shore. That's the destination. And it's to do whatever our purpose is. And so while we're riding this wave, I think we should just have as much fun as we can. Let's dodge in and out, maybe run into some things and shake things up a little bit, But once we hit the shore, then what happens to the wave? It goes right back to the ocean where it came from, because we're all thoughts of God being acted out in this 3D plane, in this 3D reality. I think if this is a
Wow.
perception, that it isn't, our soul is, our consciousness is what's real. This 3D reality we're living in is something we're co-creating with God. We're just informers to God of this is what's going on. And then we're shaped to change our environment with our unique qualities, with our quirkiness, with our style, with our whatever. God made
Wow.
us unique for a reason.
All right. Well, let's talk about your unique calling then. So what is it going to look like for you to step into this thing where you'll be speaking once or multiple times? What do you think that is? What are you feeling?
So I've recently hooked up with Portia Booker, and she is a network television producer, and she is helping me to produce a show. And I want to travel. I have just at the same time my studio has been falling apart, I have gotten invitations to go to China, which is my first international trip I've even had an opportunity to think about, and to take my business with me. And I have an opportunity this summer to go to Washington State twice, and I will be flying out, flying back, and then when we go out the second time, we'll be taking a train ride back. So I will have plenty of places to stop and film content. I want to show the world, like, if you could just have fun today, if you could just make yourself happy today, what would that be? Maybe some people, for them that's making soap or making shows or whatever. But I love to chase history. I love to play with my dogs in the rain. I love to read signs. I love to discover things. I love looking at beautiful scenery. So I want to go, and I just want to start making a show, because God gave us this world to explore. This is where we are. He gave us each other to love and to commune with and to share our stories and our growth, right? And so I want to go out and I want to reconnect with people in a real way. I want to show people what's out in this world to see, when you're not stuck in this fear zone of, I don't even want to leave my house because, Nancy next door is going to be talking about me, or Chuck down the street's got something to say. And I don't care. Let them talk. I'm doing what God intended for me today. I'm happy. I'm living in my own energy, and I'm spreading good cheer.
Amazing. Well, Michelle, you're a bundle of excitement and energy and joy, and I love that
Thank
you're
you.
part of the Christ Quest. I have no doubt that there'll be people you're going to meet here that'll help. You guys will help each other propel towards whatever the realization of the eventuality that you're looking for or hunting for is. I love the metaphor of the wave from the boat. You don't know how far the shore is, but everyone's going to hit the shore. And then of course
Yes.
it melts back into, after lapping up against or crashing up against or rolling up against. That's just, wow. You just gave us a beautiful metaphor.
Yeah. Like, you just go right back to being with God as pure energy. You're just transformed into something new. And I believe in reincarnation. I believe in other realms and other dimensions. To think that we're the only living thing that God created is very narrow-minded. So not only did God create the heavens and the earth, but God created it all. And if the that one universe we live in is bigger than our mind can imagine, then imagine everything we can't imagine. And so to think that we're the one living thing in it, I just want to be open to experiencing whatever God has out there for me. And I can't wait to get back to being with God, because as a spirit, and I can astral project, I do this in my dreams, I can choose to go places. And so I love being free of this body. I love it. It is a high like nothing else. And so I'm looking very much forward to the day I hit the shore. But I want to have as much fun as I can on the way. I just want to have fun
Oh,
and maybe make some other people smile.
beautiful. Well, thank you, Michelle Jones, for being on the Christ Quest. This has been a real pleasure. I'm glad we had to wait 3 or 4 weeks to do it, but what a gift. If you resonate with this, let Michelle know in the comments. Obviously, connect with her. You are someone that is a catalyst. You're like a joy catalyst, Michelle. So thank you
Thank
for being
you.
here. And thanks for doing this interview with me into the Christ Quest. We're gonna
I
bounce
appreciate you
now.
having me.
I appreciate just that metaphor. I'm gonna take that with me today. It's like, how do I want to be as a wave? I I was meditating on this last night. I was like, 30 years ago, right now, I graduated. And I'm like, I'm 48, almost 49, 30 years, I'm 78, almost 79. I could be done then, before or after, I don't know, but it's like 30 years is like that. It's like 3 to 7 chapters of your life ish, 30 years. And it's like, I only got 3 to 7 chapters maybe left. So I appreciate you saying that metaphor, because that's what I've been contemplating, going, how am I living my life, or how am I being the wave? Beautiful.
Joyfully, do it joyfully.
All right, we'll end here. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Take care. Thank you, Amos.